Me and Jackie hasn't said no to anything quite a few years, so I went ahead and, but I'm going to do something a little different. You say, well, that's not an odd thing, but actually, what I'm going to do is questions. I get people ask me a lot of questions, uh, and we come across questions in our Sunday school class and everything. So I'm just going to pick out some questions tonight and see what the Bible has to say about them. I'm not going to preach to you, and I'm not going to keep you long because I can cut this list short anytime I want to. So maybe. Okay. One of the big questions that we have today is, why must the church support Israel? Why have they got to be supported as a nation? If the Jewish people don't go back to just the time when Abraham and Sarah had those two boys. It goes back further than that. How many of you know which one of Noah's sons the Jewish nation came from? Mm-mm. Who? I can't hear. Shem. Shem. Look at this. 11, chapter 11, verses 10 through 26. I'm not going to read all that. But it says, this is the genealogy of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begot Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Now, what's really cool in this, and you go on and you'll see where Abraham is a descendant of Shem on this side of the flood. What is really cool about this, if you add up all the little begots and the years, Frank begot Sarah, all this stuff, what you come up with is, people will say, well, how did Abraham and everything know what happened after the flood? How does that work? Okay, Abraham is still alive when Noah comes off the ship. And we know that Abraham lived in the place called Ur. Ur is close to where the original Garden of Eden was. It's basically the plain in the Euphrates River. And so he lived in what was present-day Iraq. The ark landed on what is supposedly Turkey, the nation of Turkey now. And so their paths probably crossed. It's not unthinkable to see that Abraham and Noah sat down at some time and discussed things. And, Noah told him everything that happened. Neither was it out of the way to think that Shem also was probably had some words or seen Isaac at one time. So you've got this combination of people that overlapped, and that's why we have kind of a smooth historical fact and biblical going in the Bible about the flood. We know all that. Do what? No. Abraham was a descendant of Noah through Shem, and Abraham was probably about 35, 40 years old when Noah died. So it's plausible for them two to have talked to one another. As far as why we should do, make sure that Israel, that we take care of them, it's because God has said so. Look in chapter 12, and it'll be verses 2 and 3. But we can't possibly go into everything tonight, but the situation you've got over there now is between two sons, two families. It's between the descendants of Ishmael and Isaac, and then it increases when you get into Esau and Jacob. And that's when the hatred between them really start. And you got to remember, you go to the Middle East today, you can ask a Jew who his father is, and he'll say his father Abraham. You can ask an Arab who their father is, and they'll say it's Father Abraham. Because Father Abraham was both of them starting place. It's the descendants that started fighting each other. And so it says here in 12, 2 and 3, it says, I will make you a great nation, I will bless you, and make your name great. Look at this, it says, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. That is pretty simple. And nothing nothing has changed that over the years. You know, if Israel does something wrong and disobeys God, God will punish them. And that has been going on for a lot of years. But it is to our advantage, and we see a lot of reports about the rioting in the streets, you know, wanting the Palestinians to have their way, and but we need to watch as a country where we go with this, because our blessing as a nation depends on our support on Israel and the Jews, and that's just as simple as it comes. Now, why are we even told this? Well, it's easy to sit in front of the television and all the news reports and everything and just, you know, get into an anxiety fit. We see all the stuff going on over there, and it's bad. You know, I'm not going to do that or deny that, but we've got to remember that these descendants of these two brothers are going to fight each other till Jesus comes back. Nothing is going to change that. If you think, you know, I'm 170 years old, and man, didn't catch that, Joe, at all. Oh, okay. But in my lifetime, they have fought on and off. I mean, the 6-Day War and everything else, they have fought over and over again. And since they became a nation again in 1948. And so it is to our advantage to bless them. What would happen if we did not bless them anymore, if we did not side with them publicly? Then God would withhold his blessings. It says, I will bless those who bless you. I will curse him that curses you. I want to read a quote from David Jeremiah here. It says, as part of his covenant, God promised that those who treated Abram poorly would be cursed. History shows this to be true. Those who abuse the Jewish people pay a price. Now, we see this verse down here at the end. It says, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Now, if the blessing of a family depends on whether we're back in Israel as a Jewish nation, Abraham, then all families on earth are going to have the ability to become followers of Christ. Even though many of them won't, that blessing or that ability is going to be there. So we must remember that in the Middle East, we don't need to cry at night over it. We don't need to get into wonder what's happening and everything. You say, but, he said, I just don't understand all this killing that goes on. I don't understand they're showing all these bodies, both Palestinian and Jews. You got to remember something about our God. There was 3 different times in the Bible that God told his people to attack a city, and he specifically told them to kill all the babies, all the old people, all the women, even the animals. Kill them all. And you say, our God did that? Yes, God did that. Why did he do such a thing? Because God's wanted to make the promised land a place for his people, and he told Joshua to do this, and Joshua didn't do it. He cleaned out Jericho. He cleaned out other cities in there when they went across and joined it. But our God is a just God. He loves, and he is both all loving and all justice at the same time.
I remember somewhere else where he taught Saul to do the same thing, but Saul didn't do it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and you got to remember, God told Moses when he come down from the mountains with the 10 Commandments, he wanted to kill all of his people then. Every Jew that left the Egypt, and God wanted to kill all of them. And if it wasn't for Moses' begging and pleading with God not to do it, God was wanting to take Moses and his family and start all over and kill them all. We can't look at just the love of God without looking at his justice. And so God will take care of Israel. Why does Israel have to do all this? Well, Israel's made mistakes over the years too. First of all, God told them when they went into the promised land to never make an agreement with any of their enemies. They didn't do that. They're paying now for making agreements that they weren't supposed to make. And another thing was the fact that these people, the Palestinians and them, if you go back to Joshua, they have no right to be there today. And if God would have had his way about it, they would have all been gone back in the day of Joshua. I'm not saying that's what we ought to do now. I'm just saying that's what the Bible says, that part of the problem is over there. So we need to back Israel. You say, I'm just not sure. Hey, if you're not sure about the politics of it and everything else, just believe the Bible. You know, you don't have to be in tune with everything. Okay. Oh, they don't. They don't, and it's and the Bible answers a lot of questions really very easy, don't it, Joe? Sometimes. Okay, let's move on. Another question that is, where was Jesus from the time that he was taken off the cross and he arose? You've thought about that? Where was he? Was he laying in the tomb the whole time? No? Okay. 1 Peter.
Ain't there some place where he went to hell and went to
Let's see. Okay.
went to hell and started preaching to the people down there?
Okay. 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter. I'm going to read verses 18, 19, and 20. It says, "For Christ also suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive by the Spirit, by whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison, who formerly were disobedient, when once the divine long-suffering waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 souls, were saved through water." Okay. Up until the time of Noah, when people died, they went to a place called hell. Hell was an area of, if you would picture a box that has 2 parts to it, hell was the whole part, and then you had Hades, and then you had paradise. When Jesus was on the cross and he told the thief beside him, says, "Today you'll be with me where? Paradise." He didn't say heaven, didn't say hell. Heaven wasn't open for business yet. And so Jesus, through the Spirit, went down into paradise. It's where Abraham was, all the Old Testament saints. And the luckiest man down there, not lucky, but the one that was having the most fun down there was that poor old thief on the cross. Last person Jesus saved when he was down here. And this thief on the cross, I got to believe, is just ecstatic over it. But all the people that died up till the time Noah built the ark was down there in hell, or Hades. And you got to remember, hell is all about being by yourself. It's all about being lonely. These people didn't have any knowledge of what happened with the ark. And so Jesus went down there, and he would look over from paradise into hell and see all these people that had died before the flood. And he basically went down there to preach to them and say, "Listen, everything Noah told you and all the things you made fun of Noah for, Noah was right." And he just wanted them to know why they were going to spend eternity there. You know, it's like the judge offering, giving a sentence in court. You know, he reads the proclamation of what a person did. And Jesus went down there. Now, what did Jesus do after that? hey, he come up. The people that was in paradise, like Noah, like Abraham, like all the godly people, like that thief on the cross, when Christ come up, he took them to heaven. Paradise became a place of hell. And so, ever since Jesus arose and went to heaven after his resurrection, that's where people, those that have been saved, are going. And so we see that. Okay. Now, John 20:17. Okay, John 20:17. It was the morning of the resurrection, and I'll get there shortly. Okay. Mary Magdalene came out to the tomb. And it says in verse 14, it says, now when he had said this, he turned around, or she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, and did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? She, supposing him to be the gardener, said to him, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him, Rabboni, which is to say, teacher. Jesus said to her, do not touch, or another definition is, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. Okay? You ever wondered what that's a strange request, ain't it? I mean, we know that over the next 50 days that Jesus was on earth, he met his disciples. Thomas touched his hands and the nail scars, and he met with some of them on the road. It's not Damascus. Trying to think of the name of it. But anyway, there was a lot of his disciples and a lot of people touched him. So why would he tell Mary, do not cling to me or do not touch me? Well, here's the deal. Jesus is going to be there 50 days. And he was basically telling Mary, don't cling to me like you're never going to see me again. I mean, I'm not going up to heaven this evening, you know. He just said, don't be in a hurry to grab me and touch me and everything, because he said, I'm going to be here a while, you know. And so it was a matter of him just calming the nerves of Mary. And so he's just simply telling her, you know, he hadn't went to heaven yet, and he's going to stay there for a while. So just, you know, kind of don't cling to him or hug him or anything, because he's going to be there. She'll have time to get her hugged in. Okay. Now, here's one, and my Sunday school class has done heard this, but I couldn't help myself. is there going to be people saved during the tribulation period? Very easy question to answer. Oh, I know so. Listen to this, chapter 7 of Revelation. Now, John, we don't know if he was through the Spirit, whether he was there in physical body or not. But you've got to picture yourself as John being up in heaven. And John is looking at everything that's going on earth. And he's seeing all this stuff. He's seeing all the battles. He's seeing all this. So he's sitting up there and he's looking at everything going on. And he says, after these things I looked and behold a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Then one of the elders, now, that elder there is one of the 24 elders of the church. So the church is already there. The elders are already there. He says, who are these arrayed in white robes, and where did they come from? So he's basically seeing people coming into heaven with their white robes on. I said to him, Sir, do you know? So he said to me, these are the ones who came out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. So yes, there'll be Jews, there'll be people from all nations. The only thing it's going to take for them to do is to be forgiven of God and put their faith and trust in him, just like we do today. Because you've got to remember, when tribulation starts, there's going to be billions of people still left on earth. And for 7 years, this is going to go on. And so many of those people are going to come to know Christ during that 7 years. And the thing is, though, with the Antichrist and with all his army, a lot of these people that are saved are going to be martyred really quick. So, we could think today that salvation may not be costing us a whole lot. For them to be saved during the tribulation period, I mean, they're going to have, when they praise God and get saved, there's going to be somebody waiting there to kill them, behead them, whatever. And so it's going to cost them their lives. How are they going to hear the gospel? Okay? How are they going to hear the gospel? It's this crazy 144,000. Everybody, goes a little nuts over the 144,000. We go back to chapter 7 and verses 4 and 5. It says, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. Uses that word sealed twice there. And it says of the tribe of Judah, 12,000 were sealed. And then it goes on, and all of the 12 tribes are represented with 12,000 people. Now, these are Jews that have been saved. Maybe saved before the tribulation period ever started. They're not part of God's church, but they are saved Jews. And what these are going to do is preach and back and forth during the tribulation period. You say, well, ain't they going to die? No, because they're sealed. These 144,000 are Jews that are going to be preaching the gospel, and God has sealed them. In other words, they cannot be killed. They won't be killed, and they'll go into the 1,000-year reign alive and will help Jesus set up his government in the New Jerusalem. So, that is what happens to them. Had a friend one time that belonged to a church that they believed only the 144,000 was going to get into heaven. And so when they would have their church service and they would take communion, they wouldn't nobody take of it because they didn't know if they was one of the 144,000 or not. So they would take the Lord's Supper and they would just pass it around and they wouldn't take anything. Nobody. Because nobody wanted to be taking the cup and the bread that wasn't saved, and nobody in there believed they was part of the 144,000. So and so that's who the 144,000, they were sealed, and they were preachers. One article I read said, picture a modern day ball stadium, and these preachers, Jewish preachers, in there preaching, and people just being saved one after another. And as they come out of the stadium proclaiming their salvation, somebody's waiting there to kill them. And so they'd give their life, a lot of them, for the salvation. Anything? Anybody?
That's what I heard for a long time. People have been telling me that.
Yep. 144,000 Jews. Be like having 144,000 Billy Grahams.
Well, you know,
And it's going to last
I was thinking if that was true about the 144,000, we'd be out of luck.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're going to preach, and there's going to be a lot of souls saved during the tribulation because of their preaching. But a lot of these people that are going to put their faith and trust in God during the tribulation period are going to give their lives for it. It's not going to be an easy road to be a Christian in the tribulation period. Okay. Well, I hope we've learned something. I just want to thank you for being here tonight, and maybe as opportunity comes, we can ask some more questions and hopefully find some more answers. We'll go ahead and ask Greg if he'll come and